The Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario has been releasing some absolutely nutty content that they want being taught to children, and I wanted to cover it here today for the National Telegraph. Of course, this might not be the biggest story on the planet. Of course, everyone kind of knows that teacher unions tend to lean very hard left, and they of course believe in a lot of the woke politics of the Liberal Party and the NDP. But I think the ETFO here actually deserves to have a little bit more scrutiny put to them, because they've released this new content that they've sort of stapled onto their old lesson plan package they released in 2018. It's called like the I think it's like Rethink, Reconnect, and Reimagine lesson plan package. But this new part, like the old parts were already bad enough. This new one is trying to teach children about white privilege and sexism in such a way where I think any parent who sees this content would realize that what the ETFO is doing is essentially giving teachers instructions on how to manipulate children and make them feel like bad people, essentially shaming them with little kind of social games to make children believe that they've somehow done something wrong. It's using a very kind of gross form of guile in order to teach a lesson, which I feel like if you were teaching a good lesson, you wouldn't even attempt to use in the first place. No one really, you don't trick a child into learning something that's good for them to know. If you're tricking someone into doing something, you're obviously up to no good, at least in my estimation. This is the front page of the Rethink, Reconnect, and Reimagine lesson plan package that the ETFO put out. I think that any Ontario parent who would read something like this would immediately get the distinct impression that whoever designed it is a cultural Marxist or radical leftist. The package constantly promotes the idea that equity is better than equality, that somehow the Ontario academic system is colonialist and racist, while at the same time, it constantly pushes the notion that certain children of different ethnic backgrounds can't learn the same way, which frankly to me seems extremely racist, to act as if because someone is indigenous, or because someone is black, or because someone's Asian, or because someone's white, that they don't learn the same way, as if certain types of thinking are reserved for people of different skin colors. It's extremely strange, but what I want to highlight most of all is the second little piece of information that I didn't dig up, but an Ontario teacher found. Here it is, and I just want to read it out for everyone, because I think that just hearing it should just be sending alarm bells off in your head of how wrong this should be to teach to children. So here it goes. This is the best person in the world lesson plan. And this instructs teachers to have students brainstorm qualities that the best person in the world would have using the prompts in Appendix E. Write them on the board. Have each student think of 3 examples of who might be the best person in the world. Tell them the people who can be famous or known to them personally, can be living or dead, real or fictional. Ask students to share who they think are the best people in the world. Write them on the board. If a student shares people like mom or police officer, you can just have a category rather than the name on it of an individual. Once you have filled the board with names, students are free to share more than their original 3 as they think of additional examples. Underline all the men. It will usually be a majority. Now I'm just going to stop reading right there for a second, just to reflect on how absurd all of that is. The ETFO is describing this as like sort of a statistical game to play with kids, and if the kids pick a majority of men, the teachers got them. They're gonna go after little Jimmy for somehow being a sexist because he picked more men than women, which is silly because unless the kids picked 50 names and 25 of them were men and 25 of them were women, you're going to have a majority of one gender or the other. And so what if they happen to most of the time pick a few more men than women, or even 10 more men than women? Just let the kids pick whoever they thought of. Stop trying to control what they think. It's kind of gross. Going back to the lesson plan package, it says ask the students if they notice what the underlined people have in common. Discuss why they name so many men, explain male privilege, then underline in another color all the people who are white. Ask what they have in common. If the list has a gender and race balance, discuss why their list differs so greatly from another classroom where this lesson has been used. In most cases, the majority of the names generated are white males. Ask students what the term white privilege means to them. This is a laughable question to ask students because of course the ETFO doesn't care what they think about white privilege, and they're really just posing the question to make it seem like the kids aren't being indoctrinated, when in reality white privilege has one definition because it's a cultural Marxist creation, and that's what the teacher is going to end up teaching the class by the end. I think any parent who reads this specific lesson plan example would find it quite disgusting on two different fronts. One, they're trying to teach children to constantly see race, to enter a room, note people's races, and act accordingly based on that, and not based on who people are as individuals, whether you share things in common with them, whether they're nice to you or not, and other sorts of things like that. No, you're supposed to treat them differently because of what they look like and what sex they are. It's quite disgusting, and I don't think any parent would disagree with that. But on top of that, what they're doing with teachers is that they're encouraging teachers to be manipulative, to start off with a seemingly normal sounding lesson plan. We're going to talk about the best people in the world, what kind of traits that they have, and how we can emulate them, and flipping the script halfway through and saying, okay, yeah, we're talking about the best people in the world, but did you know that you're a terrible person? Oh, you were born white? Well, then that means you're somehow imbued with a certain sense of racism. Or you're indigenous? Well, that means you can't achieve as much and you need more assistance. It's essentially not only manipulative, but it's manipulative on behalf of something that's not even academic. It's quite gross, radical left-wing politics that they're teaching, at the same time that this is not training kids for the future at all. It's probably hurting their abilities to succeed. At the same time, they're just not, learning how to read, write, and do math. This is something that's a complete waste of time, as well as it's probably damaging kids socially. I wouldn't doubt that a lot of kids who went through this lesson plan would be quite stressed out afterwards and feel kind of ashamed of themselves, because kids don't realize that this teacher believes in this strange form of social politics where they think for some reason everyone's race determines where they are in life and nothing has to do with what you do as an individual or your own merit or the multiple factors that go into your own personal background. It's all because of race. The kids don't understand that that's a very fringe and weird thing to believe, so they're not going to be able to tune this out. It's the adult in the room, they're teaching them, I'm going to believe them. Because of course, kids are going to believe whoever their teacher is. Because how miserable would that be? You enter a room and you just think that your teacher's a nutcase. Well, every kid's just going to inherently trust the teacher because it's the adult in the room, and with their own parents, they're sort of trained to trust the adult, because you should be able to trust adults. But it seems like we can't anymore because the ETFO wants every single teacher to be a secret cultural Marxist agent. It's ridiculous. And when you look at the ETFO's website, it's very clear that they're really into this stuff, that they absolutely love all these kind of weird identity-based issues. And I'll sort of even to show you the front page of that website now, because it's ridiculous how much content related to these issues there is. So here's the front page of the ETFO's website, and when you highlight social justice, you get this big drop-down menu with stuff like disability programs, anti-black racism, anti-Asian racism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, all that kinds of stuff, indigenous stuff. And I don't think anyone would disagree that while both disability programs are great, it's actually kind of admirable if the ETFO promotes specific programs or goes the extra mile to help kids with disabilities, or that it's like no one would disagree that's wrong to teach that intolerance and racism are bad. But the problem is we've just gone over a lesson plan example that showed that they actually don't care about racism in any substantial way, because they teach kids to view race. They teach kids to be racist, but just be racist in the way that the ETFO likes. You have to just basically follow the ETFO's oppression hierarchy. Certain kids are better than others. Certain kids are privileged and benefit from our racist system more than others. So that's how their version of racism works, that they think that someone might be racist because they occupy this innocuous position in society that is apparently racist because of the person's skin color or whatever. That's what they're looking at. I don't doubt that they would go through something like anti-black racism and it would start just being a bunch of equity nonsense again, where they're just talking about how if certain people don't occupy enough positions in society that somehow there is racism in society. They wouldn't be talking about real racism or intolerance. One, because those are quite easy to solve. Stop talking about race, stop seeing race, and stop judging people based on their faith or ethnicity. It's incredibly straightforward, but the fact that they have so many categories on this website probably proves that they have this really convoluted Marxist way of looking at like oppression, issues around oppression, racism, and stuff like that. I don't think any parent would trust these people based on the content that they've released to try and teach their kids why racism is bad, because they probably only make kids more racist in the process, because the vast majority of kids in this world are not racist, especially in North America. Yet, for some reason, the ETFO members think that if we don't absolutely shove this stuff down kids' throats, they're going to come out racist, which is really funny because all they want to do is talk about race and get kids to obsess about it. But whatever, I guess I'm not a curriculum expert like they probably employ at the ETFO. Thanks for watching the first breakdown video I've ever made for the National Telegraph. I'm going to be trying to do more of these in the future, covering either undercover topics or going deeper on ones where they've only been skimmed on the surface. Hopefully you guys like this. Make suggestions in the comments of what I can do next time. And I guess just like, subscribe, and share this video, and follow the National Telegraph wherever you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Telegram. I'll link that in the description. And I guess until next time.